Well, 31% of British Columbians live with diabetes or pre-diabetes, and 11% live with diagnosed diabetes. That is according to Diabetes Canada. Now, over recent years, there have been some game-changing drugs and devices for patients. You've heard, of course, about the drug Ozempic that's now become so popular as a drug for weight loss that the province has had to put in rules to protect its supply for British Columbians. Well, now patients in BC can access new sensor-based glucose monitoring technology. It is now covered by BC Pharmacare. So we're asking you, with that, what difference will it make, or other new breakthroughs make for you? And what is your own approach to diabetes management? It is very personal and individual. So what works for you? You can give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. By email, you can reach us, bctoday@cbc.ca. And joining me is Dr. Akshay Jain, a clinical and research endocrinologist and diabetes advocate. He's my guest. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Michelle. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, Dr. Jain, thank you for joining us. First, can you give us a better sense of just how widespread diabetes is among British Columbians?
Oh yeah, it's actually the rates are growing up so high. As you mentioned, there is over 11% of British Columbians with diagnosed diabetes. If we add in undiagnosed diabetes as well as pre-diabetes or borderline diabetes, that number shoots up to 31%. So basically, as of now, 31% British Columbians are having sugars that are not in the normal range.
And why is that number growing?
So there's multiple factors as the human race becomes more and more sedentary, as our stress levels start going up, as our sleep starts deteriorating. We are at increased risk of developing diabetes. Clearly, our foods are not as healthy as they used to be. We are eating a lot of processed foods, a lot of carb-heavy and calorie-heavy diet. And at the same time, also, particularly in our community over here in British Columbia, we are seeing that there are certain populations that are at an increased risk. So if you look at the overall population, certain segments, South Asians and First Nations, they are at a higher risk of developing diabetes just because of the genetic structure.
Okay, so predisposition as well as our increasingly sedentary lifestyle. And so, we tell us about this monitoring device, first of all. How significant is this development?
Yeah, continuous glucose monitoring technology came out a few years ago and has been a game changer, in my opinion. I've been practicing diabetes care for over 11 years now. Diabetes is one of those conditions which we call a silent killer. So people living with diabetes may have blood sugars that are not in the normal range and may never even know about it. So it is very asymptomatic for the most part. Some people may experience symptoms if their blood sugars are very low or very high, but otherwise they could just be sitting, working, and not knowing that their sugars are elevated. In order to know what the blood sugars are, previously the technology involved pricking our fingers, so doing a finger stick, as we call it, and that's obviously very cumbersome, very painful.
Right.
Even then, we would only know what the sugar is at that particular second. So we didn't know if that sugar is on its way up or down or what's going to happen. This is where continuous glucose monitoring, or CGM, entered the picture. And these glucose monitoring devices, or sensors, as they're commonly called, not only will they give the sugar reading at that particular second, but the individual wearing the device also knows if the sugar is on its way up or down. If there is a low sugar, even if it's in the middle of the night, the sensors, these new sensors especially, will start beeping and alerting the individual so that they can wake up and correct it. We've all heard of instances where, say, somebody's driving on the road, on the highway, and if they are having diabetes, God forbid, if the sugar was to drop low, they could lose control of their vehicle and get into an accident, injuring themselves and others. With these new sensors, there'll be an alert that will go off, hopefully allowing that individual to pull over and correct low sugars before things can go wrong. So CGM has really changed the way we've been managing diabetes.
And how hard was it to access before this announcement that it would be covered by Pharmacare?
It was extremely difficult. So Pharmacare has been taking steps. They initially covered one type of CGM device, but it's obviously different strokes, different blokes. We need to make sure that people have access to all different types of devices or medications, which could be beneficial for them. So most recently, BC Pharmacare approved of the Abbott Freestyle Libre 2. This is a sensor that will stay on the body for up to 14 days, alerting the individual of what their sugar readings are. So this has significantly improved access, particularly in people who are at highest risk. For instance, those who are using insulin, multiple injections in a day, they get a better sense of what their sugar readings are throughout the day and night.
Okay. Dr. Akshay Jain is my guest, a clinical and research endocrinologist and diabetes expert. Appreciate your expertise and the specifics that you're giving right now, because this is such a widespread concern among British Columbians. And so we're asking you, given that Pharmacare in BC is now covering this sensor-based glucose monitoring system, will that make a difference for you? And what is your own approach to diabetes management? You can give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, and you can hit pound 690 as well. And Sheila is joining us from Kelowna. Sheila, you live with type 1 diabetes.
Well, type 1.5, actually. So sometimes my pancreas is working and sometimes it isn't, but it's essentially declining.
Okay. And let us know what that has been like for you. And we'll ask Dr. Jain as well to tell us more about type 1.5 diabetes and what the specifics of that are. But what has your condition meant for you?
Yeah, I was diagnosed about 12 years ago with late adult onset diabetes. And at that time, we knew it was a 1.5, where my pancreas was still functioning but declining. And really, because of that kind of limbo space that I am with the pancreas still working, I've been in kind of a hellscape of management because sometimes the pancreas spits up the insulin and I'm doing it at the same time, managing this. And so I end up with severe lows. There's also the complication now. I'm 46 years old and I'm moving into that wonderful female stage of life of menopause. And so the hormone also impact my ability to control my sugars. And I'm just so grateful that you're having this topic, because the glucose, the continuous glucose meters is something that I was just recently able to get into. While they've been in the market and available to us diabetics, it's just recently, at least with Dexcom, the G6 that I'm using, where it can be in water and be submerged. I'm a 6-day-a-week swimmer.
Oh, wow.
And trying to manage this. And then and we've tried like every kind of different diabetes medication to try to find some kind of stabilization with the sugars. And again, today your topic's timely because I'm this afternoon going to meet with my GP to look at how Ozempic could be hopefully a tool we can add to getting my sugar stable. We're finding that we're really struggling just because of the hormone imbalance, despite adhering to movement and food. There's still that challenge going on. So the CGM and hopefully Ozempic will be hopefully the final leg of my journey of getting control.
I hope so too, Sheila. Here you are being so diligent, pursuing these treatments, going swimming most of the week. And so you mentioned that the monitoring system is making a difference for you. You're now looking at Ozempic, and you're hopeful that will make a change for you.
Yes. Yeah. The monitoring has been phenomenal. I've been able to be with the Dexcom G6 for almost a year now, and we are actually starting to see the trends. And with my diabetes nurse and nutritionist, we're able to actually mark when we can see when my period is coming in, my menstrual cycle is coming in and going out, and seeing how the medications, the food, the activity are all working together or not working together. So it's been phenomenal to have that technology, just like the doctor was saying there about, for example, when driving with the finger prick, I can't pull over and stop and do a finger prick in a timely way, but with the CGM, I set it with alerts. It lets me know if I'm going down, and exactly as the doctor said, I can pull over, treat it, and have that kind of safety of mind.
And Sheila, because you were in that kind of limbo for a while, is there anything you want to share that might have improved that for you? When it comes to support or knowledge about type 1.5 diabetes specifically, or just the ability to perhaps access more options? What would have made a difference for you in the early stages?
I think we have problem with access to endocrinologists here in the interior. They're all pooled down on the coast. So that's been a big challenge of care. I am fortunate, though, here in Kelowna through Interior Health Diabetes Education Clinic. There is a phenomenal diabetes nurse who's made amazing relationships across BC around care. And what I would say to others who are struggling and finding stabilization, be persistent. Knock on the door of your local diabetes education center and don't give them a break. Just show up.
I can see Dr. Jane is not opposed to that. He's nodding his head. Sheila, all the best to you. Just so great to hear from you, and that you have this hope and optimism now in your journey. I really hope that it makes a difference for you. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you. Have a lovely day. Thank you for this conversation.
You too. Good luck with your meeting with your GP this afternoon. Dr. Jane, so much there, right? What it was like for her. First, perhaps let's go through what type 1.5 diabetes is.
Yeah, so type 1.5 diabetes is essentially when at a later stage in life, your pancreatic function starts declining. So the pancreas is the part of the body that produces insulin, which is a very vital hormone that regulates blood sugars. Type 1 diabetes is essentially when the body starts attacking the pancreas, and that is generally seen more in kids, but it can happen at any stage of life. And what Sheila was mentioning is up until age 34, life was very different for her. And then 12 years ago, she got diagnosed with this condition. And since then, it's been a roller coaster for Sheila. That's such a poignant story that she shared. Everything that she does, she has to take into account what her sugars would be. Even a basic thing like swimming, she has to think so much before she goes for a swim, whether her sugar's too high, too low. So having something that is keeping a watch on her sugars, such as the CGM, can be such a game changer for her. I strongly believe that since the CGMs came out, they've been less of a glucose monitoring tool and more of a behavioral modification tool, Michelle. Time and again, I hear from individuals where, they'll have something, a meal, for instance, that they've always had for lunch, say, and then they see how their blood sugar skyrocket.
Right.
Like, oh, that's their aha moment, Michelle. They're like, I thought this was a healthy meal for me, but now my body shows that how my sugars are going up. So it then makes them change their diet. They can see how different activities can help control their sugars, how taking medications on time can also help that. So it really helps with behavioral modification as well.
And so finally, she talked there about the challenges early on, challenge with accessing endocrinologists in the Kootenays, or in the interior rather. And so what advice would you have, just in our last minute and a half here, what advice would you have for someone who is just starting their journey?
It's been a big challenge for sure. I'm not going to lie. As with most healthcare in our province, there's been a difficult time with access. But COVID in its wake, for better or for worse, silver lining was that we all got accustomed to virtual care. And certainly the government has supported doctors doing virtual care. So in my own clinic, I'm sitting here in Surrey, British Columbia. Just this morning, I was speaking to a patient in Prince George. And later this afternoon, I've got another phone appointment, which I'm having with the patients in Kamloops. So it does, enlarge my prospects of being able to, reach out to patients that are not physically in the vicinity.
Dr. Jane, thank you very much for discussing this with us. New treatments for diabetes and advice for management and care. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me, Michelle.
Dr. Akshay Jain is a clinical and research endocrinologist and diabetes expert. Really grateful for him joining us. I know he's a very busy person, as you can see. So good to have him on the show today.